This video was sponsored by IKEER. So about 3 weeks ago I moved into this new space and I built out the first studio, which you might have seen in a video 2 weeks ago. But there's also this other room to this space which is a little bit larger, and it's a total mess at the moment. Like all of the stuff I still have left over from the moving part is over here, but I put up some slatted walls, makes it feel a little bit more homey, and also got rid of some other walls because I want this to be a completely open room. And it was a fun process of actually remodeling the place. I still have some stuff to do, some finishing touches, but the more and more I was busy with the space, I came to realize that I really like this little corner area next to the window, and I'd like to build out this little lounge area where we can just chill out and model some stuff out on the iPad, maybe concept some things for future videos. And a little while ago, IKEA reached out and offered to send me the K40 Max, which is really neatly packaged. It's actually a really large laser cutter, but they made it so that it's very easy to ship essentially. So it has an engraving volume of 85 by 80 centimeters, which is quite large for laser cutters like this. And this one has a 48 watt diode laser module, which you can switch between 24 and 48 watt. This one actually comes in two variants, so you have the K40 and you also have the K70. Now if you're doing a project like I'm doing here today, you might want to go for the K70 Max because that one has a 70 watt laser head, which is a little bit higher power, so it'll be easier to cut through wood. So what I really like about it is that you can actually turn off the fire detection system, which is something that's very useful if you're laser cutting through multiplex, because it often sets off even though there's no fire. And I say this because in this video I'd like to use the IKEA laser cutter to build a very nice little light for my lounge area. And I still had this Elgato ring light laying around, which really sparked this idea. I took that to the 3D scanning station just to get into the CAD software and started modeling some stuff out. And this is also something I'd really like the lounge area to be used for, either concepting ideas for future build videos or modeling stuff out on the iPad. Now the reason I wanted to use the Elgato ring light is because I wanted it to have somewhat of a futuristic vibe. During the modeling process though, it became a little bit more fluid and a little bit stranger, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think in general I'd like the space to have a very creative vibe, where if you have visitors over, they'll leave with an interesting design at the head, for example, right? You can check out my Patreon page if you're interested in getting the CAD files. I upload pretty much all the designs that I make over there, and all of the proceeds go directly back into the channel. So special thanks to all of the Patreons who are over there already. So the initial design was a little bit plain and I didn't really like the look of it at all. I switched to a different lighting source midway through the project as well, because the Elgato ring light is really quite expensive and I would like to use that for a different project. And eventually I ended up with a design which complements the slatted walls as well. So you have the wood color but also the black interior struts. So the first thing we'll be focusing on is the light shade itself. You can see that I went for quite an industrial looking design with the exposed bolts over here. And one of the first things we're cutting out in the K40 Max are these rims, which will help diffuse the light a little bit. The way the light shade is held in place is with these two components over here. And these will just have a little gap so the arms can connect to that. And then we'll glue these into place on the main sheet. So the K40 Max did a pretty decent job at cutting through these pieces. There wasn't too much charring on the other end. Although I did notice that the power was a little bit limited because it's only a 48 watt module. So I was cutting at 250 millimeters per minute at 100% power, and it took me 2 passes to get through this multiplex. I'd like to make sure to cut the main sheet over here out of a nice piece of wood, because that's the segment that you'll see the most of. And as you can see, between the two gaps to actually mount it, there's also a gap for the cable to go through. I really enjoyed the looks of the IKEA laser cutter as well. So it comes in this blue color and it seems like anodized metal, which also speaks to the build quality of this machine. So pretty much everything except for the display and the air assist module is made out of metal. And it's also really neat how they arrange the autofocus on this machine. So this one actually has some kind of depth sensor in there, which does this in a more digital manner. So it's not actually touching the work surface. A little while ago I bought some really nice sheets of multiplex with a really unique pattern on them. And to make that color really pop, I put some lacquer over the top over here, and I glued those connecting pieces in place, which are friction fit into it. Now I want this light to be quite diffused, so I'm using this plexiglass sheet over here, and I frosted this by going over it with a sanding machine earlier. And I'm using the original cutouts of the multiplex sheets as a guide so that I can cut off as much material as possible. And then after this I drilled in some holes, connecting all of those pieces together. This way I can sand down the edges, so the plexiglass will be just as round as the other pieces. found this really nice black braided cable in the hardware store. We can basically cut that in half and strip off the excess over here. Then make sure we go past it with a lighter so that the braided sleeve doesn't fall off later down the line. And then we can use this to actually attach to the light. To space out all of the rings, I initially wanted to use washers, but I ended up 3D printing some little pucks just to keep with the black and wood color theme. So in some of my other videos, people have been asking me how I got to this point. Like, what did I do? What did I study? How do I acquire the skills to do these things? And in my head, it's not that skillful what I'm actually doing. I just have an idea. I act upon it, figure out the technical knowledge I need to build the things I want to build. I did have a very fortunate upbringing. Like, my granddad was an artist and he had a really awesome shop. We'd be building stuff in there all of the time. So I basically grew up with a drill in my hands and a lot of ideas in my head. And I personally didn't really study anything related to this. I did electrical engineering for a little bit. I went to art school and I mainly focused on video and film. I think one of the biggest influences in my experience level and knowledge has been YouTube, actually, because everything you ever want to know is on YouTube, and you just have to find the time and find the inspiration to figure it out and start doing it. And of course, the YouTube channel itself has been very enabling as well. When manufacturers send you really awesome tools, you kind of have to figure it out, and that makes it very exciting to do this. So the next thing are the arms themselves, and I was a little bit conflicted about this, if I should go for a minimal look or something more fluid, and eventually went for this more fluid design. So these are pretty long sheets of like 70 centimeters, and then the outsides have these gaps in them just to give it a little bit more depth. So my verdict on the K40 Max is that it's a really awesome laser cutter, maybe a little bit underpowered for the types of things that I would like to do. This project would have really benefited from the K70 with the 70-watt module on there. But other than this, it's been holding up really good. And I think this is one of those machines which will last a very long time because everything is integrated properly. All of the cables are properly managed, has the air assist unit, has the touch display over there, which you could integrate into your own enclosure if you'd like to. And in terms of performance, it did a really good job. I mean, it's 12mm thick multiplex. I didn't expect a 48-watt module to actually be able to cut through this. So I could definitely recommend it. I'll leave some links in the description down below. Definitely check them out. In terms of how we're mounting the arms, I wanted to put some washers in between them, but I like the look of the bolt only the most. So I put some washers in between the other pieces over here. That's to separate them a little bit and give the entire arm a little bit more depth. But the reason I wanted those washers on the outside as well is because when we tighten this down quite a lot, I'm a little bit afraid that it's going to eat into the wood. But I noticed that they don't have to be too tight to keep enough friction on the arm itself to hold the entire thing in place. I would like this arm to be more flexible than this though, so that we can also extend it into a different position where it's very far away from the centerpiece. Now in terms of that centerpiece, I wanted this to be rotatable so that we can rotate it across the room and put it in different areas. So I've got this Lazy Susan off of Amazon, and this will help us connect the two components together. So if you're enjoying the video so far, then definitely consider leaving it a like, leaving a comment, subscribing to the channel if you're interested in more of these build videos. So this top segment is mounted a little bit different, so it has these extra latches on the hook itself, and that just keeps it from dropping down because this entire segment is going to be quite heavy. It was a little bit difficult to get these pieces in because I had actually painted them, which resulted in a millimeter extra, and I didn't leave any room in the design itself. And so it is a very crude design. We'll be mounting it onto the ceiling before we actually mount this bottom segment over here, which holds the light in place. But you can see that it's very nice and rotatable this way. So in terms of the ceiling mount, you would usually want to do this with more than one bolt, but there was already a hole in the ceiling, so I just used that one, and I might actually be moving it to a different location soon. After that, I used a sit-stand desk to actually lift the entire light upwards a little bit, making the mounting process a little bit easier. So I added that last M10 bolt over there. I'm not too sure about the looks yet, but in general, I did enjoy this project. It's something that I've never really done before, something that's not necessarily functional, but it's more on the design spectrum, even though I'm not that great at design, as you can tell. But I hope it gave you some inspiration, and I hope you enjoyed the video. See you in the next one.